Dear students, let us start 08 March 2016 newspaper. In this, the first article is by Mr. Rangarajan. It is about the fiscal deficit and how rational the 3% target is, why the fiscal deficit maintenance in the estimated limits is necessary are argued over here. You know that as per the FRBM Act, the estimated fiscal deficit is around 3% of the GDP. Now, in line with this, the government agreed to consolidate the fiscal deficit at 3.5% of GDP in the roadmap. So, what makes it right? What are the arguments in favor of that? Now, you see, the governmental spending and private sector expenditure, always they are on the deficit side. The household savings, this is on the surplus side. So, if the household savings are better, then the expenditure can be increased. But however, in India, these household savings, they are showing a decline. So, in these circumstances, to what extent we can expand the fiscal deficit is the question. Added to that, the 3% at the union level and 3% at the state level, total makes the fiscal deficit at 6%, which is quite high and reasonable. And the other factor is the debt to GDP ratio. So it is bound to increase in these circumstances. So the debt to GDP ratio, if it increases, the most of the revenue will be spent on interest payments. So the expenditure quality will decrease and its productivity will decrease when the fiscal deficit increases. So in these circumstances, it is prudent to continue with macroeconomic stability and fundamentals. On the other hand, to what extent we can achieve the said 3% of the fiscal deficit target is one thing. So first is on expenditure side, it is estimated that there will be a growth of 10.8%. It's a kind of an underestimation according to Rangarajan, because the seventh pay commission recommendations probably were not taken into fullest context, and this might be led to underestimation. On the revenue side, the rise is expected around 11.7%. That appears reasonable. But however, disinvestment targets, these are never met. So in these circumstances, the government shall try to achieve these disinvestment targets. So these are the things. So if the disinvestment targets are not met to the tune of 550,000 crores, probably revenue side may fall, which may make the government not to reach to its targets. And coming to the other measures, so plan versus non-plan expenditure has to be abandoned. So in this case, the plan and non-plan expenditure, it is quite arbitrary, and it also has led to the lack of a holistic view with regard to the expenditure. For example, capital expenditure is falling onto the plan and non-capital on the non-plan expenditure. So for example, a school is being built, it falls under the plan expenditure, but the maintenance of the school, recruitment of the teachers, it is becoming on the non-plan expenditure. Because of this, there is a lack of coordination on the ground level, so it has to be done away with. On the other hand, to boost the private sector, capital taxes are expected to be reduced, but however, government did not take any steps in that direction. So other than that, the steps which are taken are reasonable, but however, if they have to move forward, it is not the scheme and its strength that is useful, it is the implementation capability. So further, the state capacities have to be raised. So these things need to be improved to make the system more objective. So in this case, the rural demand is bound to increase, is expected to increase with the increased expenditure on the rural infrastructure and also the various schemes meant for the poor people. The next is Women Bill. You know that the 108th Amendment Bill, it was passed by the Rajya Sabha and is pending in the Lok Sabha. Now with the absolute majority, the Modi's government and Congress which has supported the bill, they can together get the bill passed in Lok Sabha. So in this context, it appears, irrespective of the ideologies of the political parties, all the political parties in India are patriarchal. So the chances of women reservation bill getting passed are relatively less. What are the objections to this? Now, what the RJD and Samajwadi party say is that may affect the existing system where OBCs have a reservation. And next is the upper caste women and the women related to the powerful individuals, they may take away the benefits of the women reservation. So these are the two main objections which are put forward. So, however, if the parties are committed, they can start this particular reservation within their party system itself and slowly can be extended into the government. So we all know that what the women reservations did to the panchayats, how it has led to the gender justice and improvement in the social justice. So you all know the political participation and representation are the two critical elements of the women empowerment. So in this context, what we shall do is the women empowerment has to be directly related to the reservations provided them into the representative houses, and it will have many positive externalities. Now let's know how the United States system functions. What is the importance of lobbying in the United States? Now if you observe carefully, in spite of suspicion about the Pakistan, displeasure about the Pakistan, United States has passed the Kerry-Lugar bill to the tune of $5.4 billion was given as a loan. And added to that, recently, in spite of India's objections, it agreed to give F-16 aircrafts to it to fight against the terror. So in these circumstances, what appears is this: United States of America, in the short run, lobbying will be very effective. In the long run, the strategic convergence may work, but in the short run, to what extent the legislatures can be influenced through lobbying it will really work. So India has to take a look at this particular thing. And next is with regard to Ishrat Jahan's encounter. So the IB has given specific inputs towards these Lashkar-e-Toiba operatives, and it considered them as the Lashkar-e-Toiba operatives. And then the UPA government has given this for the CBI inquiry. It has led to a conflict between the IB and CBI. So now, the politics of the day shall not interfere with the functioning of the institutions, and to bridge the gaps between these two people, two institutions, the highest level leadership has to take an initiative. And the next is infrastructure. So what are the recent steps taken up to decrease the policy paralysis related to the infrastructure? You all know that during the Manmohan Singh government era, the policy paralysis was the major challenge. So one major thing over here is a delayed project, and if its cost gets escalated, no one are ready to take up that particular responsibility, and the project is most of the cases left in the middle way. So in this case, an arbitration law was already enacted, and a statutory mechanism is said to be come into the place to discuss and also negotiate on the escalated prices of the projects if they get delayed due to governmental permissions or something else. And third is a commercial courts are established for speedy adjudication. Similarly, the permit raj has to be scrapped. Now you all know that the ease of doing business index is increasing on this particular front. So these initiatives are bound to increase the status of the infrastructure in the coming years. And next is Aadhaar bill. Now the Ministry of Labour, it has provided for an increased subsidy of 1.5 lakhs for the houses built for the BD workers and the mining workers. So this money will be transferred through the Aadhaar. Using the Aadhaar, the cash direct transfers will be enabled. So in this context, the UIDAI kept the hard working labor, especially belonging to the mining industry, away from this particular utility. The reason being is the fingerprints can get distorted because of heavy manual work which they do. So, but however, the present program makes the Aadhaar as compulsory for the cash transfer. And the second issue is Aadhaar, the bill itself is pending in the parliament. You all know that Aadhaar bill is recently introduced as a money bill in the parliament case. So in this context, what we can say is the housing for all, before it getting linked to the Aadhaar, let the Aadhaar itself get its legitimacy. On the other side, this program is actually the part of the Housing for All program of the Prime Minister. Under the Housing for All, 1 lakh rupees will be given for slum rehabilitation program. 1.5 lakh rupees will be given for a house for the minorities and the weaker sections. So this particular Housing for All has to be continued. Next is anchor banks. So the consolidation across the banking sector was in the news for very long. So in this case, to speed up the process, the 7 banks will be appointed as the anchor banks by the government of India. So now, why the banking sector is opposed to this? Already balance sheets of the banks are very negative. After the asset quality review, they have gone much further worse. So in this context, the banks are not in a position to accept or take over other weak banks, and it may not be good for the consolidation. So the time has to come from the consolidation. But however, the government is very keen to consolidate the banking sector in India. So these are the important points for day, and thank you very much. All the best.